Have you ever felt like everything is falling apart and no matter what you do, you can't fix it? Welcome to this shadow of chaos. But what if I told you the mess is the message? First, I'm going to start with a parable, a short story, just to help you understand the gist of the process of navigating this shadow. And this is called the Garden of Shifting Paths. So let's begin. Once in a valley where seasons change without warning, there lived a young woman named Leanna. She was a gardener, not of ordinary crops, but of rare and wild plants that no one else dared to tend to. Her garden was like any other. Paths would appear and disappear overnight. Flowers bloomed out of season, and vines crept up from the earth as though guided by unseen hands. The villagers called her garden chaotic, and they weren't wrong. It really defied logic. Seeds sprouted in the wrong soil, herbs grew tangled with thorns. And yet, Leanna remained each day rising to tend a garden that made no sense even for her. Many mornings, she questioned why she stayed. Nothing followed the rules here. Her neat rows became swirling spirals. Her careful graftings fell apart. At times, her hands trembled with frustration. The chaos whispered,
You are failing.
but one day, while digging in the corner of a particular unruly patch, Leanna uncovered something, a smooth black stone inscribed with a strange symbol. It pulsed faintly in her palm. That night she dreamt of an unseen tree standing in the middle of a swirling storm. From its branches hung fruits, different shaped fruits, and she heard a voice say,
Nothing new is born in order. Chaos is the cradle.
The next day, something shifted in her. She began to watch rather than fight the garden. Where she once forced rows, she allowed spirals. She noticed how the wildest vines sheltered roots that were vulnerable or fragile. She let plants choose her companions. Slowly her hands stopped shaking. Villagers began to visit, not for order, but for wonder. Children laughed as flowers danced in unpredictable waves. Healers discovered that the strangest blends of herbs had the most potent effects. Leanna no longer controlled the garden. She collaborated with it. Years passed, and Leanna's garden became legendary, not for its perfection, but for the unpredictable magic that bloomed there. One evening, a traveler asked her, "How did you tame the chaos?" And she smiled and replied, "I didn't. I stopped needing to." He frowned. "And how do you know what will happen?" "I don't," she said, eyes soft like spring rain. "But neither does a child know what game they'll play tomorrow, and still they play." And with that, she wandered back into the garden, humming, a grown woman with the wide eyes of a child, walking barefoot through chaos that had become her playground. When we look back at that parable and reflect on it, Leora's journey shows the core transmutation of this third gate and or gene key challenge. This shadow, chaos, at first, Leora struggles. the garden resists control, and her identity is tested. Through that process, something reveals itself, processing the shadow. Through surrender and observation, she discovers new, unrepeatable patterns. She begins to co-create. As she starts to understand that process and master it, she starts integrating a grace from the experience. In the end, she becomes like a child again, playful, trusting, and attuned to the mystery. In this lesson, chaos is not the enemy, it is the fertile soil which true innovation and spiritual innocence can emerge if we dare to stop resisting it. And the moral of the story is, when the world unravels, can we let go of needing to fix it? Just sit in the wonder, play in the mystery, and find out what emerges is not the old order restored, but a new beauty born from our openness. So just to get the gist of this shadow, chaos, at its core, this shadow challenge embodies the primordial state of raw, unformed potential that feels overwhelming and disorienting. This chaos breeds a survival-driven mindset rooted in a fear and a deep-seated belief that we are powerless. Historically, reinforced by religion and science, this shadow casts humanity as either unworthy of divine connection or subject to ruthless natural selection. The experience is one of standing before a vast chasm, facing the choice between succumbing to chaos or embracing the cosmos, order born of intention. The shadow manifests itself as a dog-eat-dog mentality, fostering division and struggle, with the mind entrenched in survival at all costs. The repressive nature of this shadow challenge can come across as anal retentive. The repressive nature expresses a fear of disorder, physically showing up as a habitual shallow breathing and deep-seated tension in the body. This is a self-imposed tightening that resists the natural flow of change and is rooted in the fear of experiencing chaos. Some of the statements that might come across are, I need something to help me escape the feeling of overwhelming powerlessness. Or, I have no clue what to do. I'll ask others what I should do. Or, there are so many options, it's too daunting and not worth the effort. Another is, I don't convey a sense of confidence or competence. They won't invest in me. The next is, I'm too weak. It's easier to surrender to those who have dominance over me. And lastly, the sixth expression is, I surrender to the chaos. It's hopeless to create anything from this. As we deal with this repressive nature over time, it gets to a point where your apathy might turn into some sort of reactive anger, which can become very disordered, which is what the reactive nature is. Because it erupts as a distrust of subtle forces of life, often manifesting as deep rage or anarchistic rebellion. This explosive energy fights perceived threats to control, creating destructive cycles where fear becomes self-serving and continually haunting the individual or individuals until faced and understood. Some of these 6 statements would probably be a best description of how it's expressed. For example, I have to think my way through this. There's a logical solution and I must find one. The next is, I use the strategies of others to achieve greatness. I use them even if it's not natural for me. The next would be, history repeats itself, and I'm only going to stick to traditions that worked in the past and now. The third would be, history repeats itself, and I only stick to traditions that worked in the past and now. The next is they have to see what I offer, but when they do, they keep distancing themselves from me. The next would be I have to confront those attempting to subjugate me to their reality. And lastly, I'll never surrender to others. I'll keep pushing in my direction and they'll see that I'm right. In this swing between repressive and reactive, eventually we'll have to come to the terms that things aren't working for us. And we have a dilemma that we have to face. And that dilemma is of clinging. One can cling to philosophy, lifestyle, religion, science, or dogma to feel secure. But life is ever changing. The choice is to either cling to the familiar or approach life with a childlike innocence, embracing change and expressing one's unique creativity. Here are some self-study questions that you can consider asking yourself and going into a deep state of contemplation, emotionally and mentally, to answer those questions from deep within your core of being. First one is, what ways do I cling to certainty or dogma to avoid the discomfort of chaos? Second is, how do I physically hold tension or restrict my breath when faced with disorder or uncertainty? The third one is, when have I reacted with rebellion or anger instead of trusting life's subtle currents? And the fourth and last is, how can I cultivate a sense of playfulness and openness to change in my daily life? Here are a few strategies for addressing a sense of powerlessness. First, try and cultivate a sense of belonging. Second, focus on being, not just doing. Third, build agency by caring for the controllable. For example, how you respond, putting care into how you respond to external stimulus and also internal summoning for needs to be met. And lastly, cultivate joy and gratitude. If you remember what times of your life where you have experienced joy and gratitude for an experience, remember why that came to be. What was the process? Did you do anything to request it? And did anything come your way as an opportunity that you naturally felt inclined to participate in? You felt a sense of aliveness in your core. You essentially did what you did naturally to achieve a specific result without any expectation, and it led to a wonderfully positive experience. Oftentimes, we don't dwell on our successes. We don't contemplate our successes. We contemplate our failures more because it's natural. We want to learn from our mistakes so we don't make them again. But we also have to learn from our successes so we can learn how that process can be repeated. Here are some other things you can consider. Practice radical acceptance and play. Find anything that you can do that you just feel excited about doing in your own spare time, whether it be gaming, art, music, dance, being around groups of people that love doing what you love doing. Find those things and feel the acceptance that comes from those networks too. Now, when you try those things and you actually find some flow and some progress with that, you might feel that the shadow is going to be revealing or has revealed a gift. And that gift is innovation. Innovation emerges when we stop resisting life's messiness and begin engaging with it playfully and purposefully. The gift transforms fear into curiosity, allows us to experiment and adapt in collaboration with others. By breakthroughs, innovation invites us to co-create with life, not to try and control it. Here are some likely self-empowered statements that might surface from the results of or the fruits of your labor in this process. First one is, sitting in the confusion will reveal the right questions. I'll ask them, find clarity, and the right intention so that I can get through this. The next one is I am able to grow by experimentation. I learn what works from not taking failure so personally. Eventually, I will find the right flow in my manifestations. Next one is I intuit the right complement to my creations, and I use my inner guidance to find those complements to produce a natural expansion of our creations. Fourth one is I'm able to cultivate an inspired state of being. My devoted actions, my manifestations attract work that fuels my soul. Fifth one is I have the power to choose to heal and become self-led. Again, I choose a life that is guided by my heart and gut, even if others try to discourage it. And last one is I am able to create a state of harmony. I integrate variables needed to create with my heartfelt intentions. I feel the momentum will shift. As you feel like you can embody these statements naturally without much impediment or interference, you'll start to have some sort of grace descend upon you. And that grace, as the Indian rishis would have called it, would be a siddhi. And this siddhi would be a state of innocence, this grace of innocence. And in this, it's a return to a childlike state of wonder and openness. Even amidst adulthood and complexity, it is not ignorance, but a deep trust in life's unfolding, free from the need to control or define. Because work becomes play, and play becomes a sacred way of being. And in this state, we remember that we are not separate from life, but a joyful expression of it. So to recap this, chaos isn't the end. It's the playground of your soul. Let's stop trying to fix ourselves and start creating from the mess. You can now ask yourself the question, where are you clinging to uncertainty? Once this training video is completed, you can start scrolling down to meditations, aromatherapy options, further self-study, exercises to gain momentum through the process and mastering this. I'll also be providing a 12-week exercise that allows you to build on small wins that become bigger and bigger challenges, but you'll gain confidence with each win to the point where you feel like the fear of being powerless really doesn't apply anymore. You can sense it, but it doesn't have the same effect on you. You're actually more in control of how you deal with the mess that's going on in your life with a childlike approach. Thank you for going through this process and choosing Celestial Warmth Wellness as your means of shadow transmutation, empowering yourself, and self-mastery.